Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into this powerful, almost invisible force that's constantly pushing us to conform, and how understanding it might just change your life. I mean, it's a feeling we've all had, right? But the reason why, well, it goes way deeper than you'd think. We're talking about something that's hardwired right into our brains.
All right, so let's just jump right in. There's this fascinating study that shows just how deep this pressure to conform really goes.
So, picture this. Researchers in the Netherlands get a bunch of people, put them into these fMRI scanners. You know, the machines that can see what your brain is doing in real time. And they give them a super simple test. Just rate a bunch of faces on how attractive they are from 1 to 5. Totally subjective, right? Well, that was exactly the point. Okay, but here's where it gets wild. After they rated a face, the researchers showed them a group average, which, by the way, was totally fake. Now, when a person's rating matched the group's, boom! Their brain's reward center lit up. It felt good, like getting a little dopamine hit. But when their opinion was different, their brain triggered this thing called an error signal. Seriously, think of it like a biological fire alarm. It's the same system that screams, danger, when you touch a hot stove. It's this deep, primal warning shot that says, hey, stop what you're doing, you're out of line with the tribe. So when they asked everyone to rate the faces again, you guessed it, most people changed their scores to match the groups. And the craziest part is they didn't even realize they were doing it. This just goes to show this pull to conform. It's not some kind of character flaw. It's a deep biological impulse. It's our ancient survival wiring telling us, hey, stick with the tribe or you're going to have a bad time. But here's the billion-dollar question. What happens when our idea of the group is completely, totally wrong?
Well, that question leads us straight into this huge phenomenon that's actually shaping our entire society.
And that phenomenon has a name. Dr. Todd Rose calls it a collective illusion. You can think of it like groupthink, but with this massive critical twist. It's when you go along with the group because you're fundamentally wrong about what the group actually believes.
And this right here is what I'm talking about. It's the gap between two realities. There's the loud public consensus we all see, and then there's the quiet private truth that people actually believe. Dr. Rose tells this perfect little story about his own family. For 6 years, they went to Sizzler for family dinners. Turns out, every single person in the family hated it, but they all kept going because they thought everyone else loved it. Nobody spoke up, and so the illusion just kept on going.
Now, this kind of thing has been happening for ages, but in our modern world, it's been put on steroids. Let's talk about the giant amplifier in the room.
You see, our brains take a really dangerous shortcut. We're not built to carefully average out all the different opinions we see. Nope, we just measure two things, volume and repetition. The loudest voices repeated the most, we just assume that's the majority. And you can probably see why this is an absolute disaster in the age of social media, where algorithms are designed to push the most extreme, emotionally charged voices to the top.
I mean, just look at these numbers for Platform X, what used to be Twitter. A tiny 10% of the users are creating 80% of all the content. And the research is crystal clear. That 10% is not a reflection of the general public at all. They hold way more extreme views.
And so what's the result of all this? This. Almost 2/3 of Americans now openly admit that they're self-silencing. They're keeping their real opinions to themselves because they're afraid of the social backlash.
You see the vicious cycle here, right? The silent majority stays quiet, which makes the loud minority seem even bigger and more powerful, which in turn makes even more people afraid to speak up. It just feeds on itself. So, what's the truth that so many of us are silencing?
Well, this is actually where the story gets really hopeful, because it turns out there's this absolutely stunning gap between the kind of life we think we're all supposed to want and the one we privately, truly desire. Check this out. A huge study called the Success Index asked thousands of people to define what a successful life looks like. And the results are just wow. It's a perfect picture of a collective illusion. We think everyone else is obsessed with fame, status, and wealth. But when you ask people what they privately value most, it's things like doing meaningful work, family, being part of a community, and having good character.
And get this, fame, the number one thing we think everybody else wants, it's dead last. Literally dead last in our own private rankings. Just let that sink in for a second. We are collectively chasing a version of success that most of us don't actually want. Why? Because we've all bought into this illusion about what everyone else values. We think they want fame and status, when what we all secretly crave is connection and meaning.
Okay, so if these collective illusions are the big problem, what's the solution? Well, it turns out it's actually simpler and way more powerful than you might think.
The answer isn't to get into bigger arguments or try to persuade everyone you're right. The antidote, the kryptonite to a collective illusion, is authenticity. It's about revealing the truth simply by living it. It's about showing, not just telling.
And that gets to this really crucial difference between fitting in and belonging. See, our brains are wired to seek belonging. That's being accepted for who you truly are. But so often we settle for just fitting in, which means we have to change parts of ourselves to be accepted. And that trade-off, well, it comes at a really profound cost.
I mean, look at this. When you're constantly going against your own values just to conform, you're putting your body in a state of chronic stress. We're talking higher rates of heart disease and strokes, jacked up cortisol levels. It's even linked to anxiety, depression, and a total loss of trust in society. The health consequences are just devastating. So, what can we actually do about it?
The good news is, the journey back to being authentic doesn't mean you have to completely overhaul your life overnight. It all starts with a few simple steps. First, you've got to question your own beliefs. Really ask yourself why. Why do I believe this? So you can start to separate what you truly value from the social norms you've just absorbed. Second, you start small, with really small, meaningful acts. Maybe it's just choosing not to have a drink when everyone else is, or suggesting a different restaurant than the usual spot. Your brain will actually give you a little reward signal for that integrity. And finally, step 3 is to consciously redefine success for yourself. Focus on what you privately value, like community and connection, not on chasing that illusion of fame and status.
Because here's the thing. Your one small act of truth, of authenticity, it gives other people permission to live in their truth. And that, right there, is how these illusions start to shatter. Remember, the goal isn't to prove you're right. It's just to be aligned with who you are. And that kind of integrity, it's contagious.
So, I'll leave you with this question. What's one authentic choice you can make today? Because that one little choice, it's not just good for you, it's a genuine step toward healing the fractures we see all around us. Thanks for watching.